Our next speaker is going to be introduced by her colleague, Brian Zach. He is a passionate marine conservationist and an incredibly knowledgeable fisherman. Brian is a UH Hilo marine science graduate, having gotten his BS in 2022, where he served as the student coordinator for the sea turtle biological assessment program. So he has been rescuing turtles as an undergrad. He began at the Marine Mammal Center as a volunteer with Keikaiola, also in 2022 as part of the Rescue and Recovery Program. A year later, in 2023, he was hired as a response dispatcher, where he provides coverage for their Hawaiian monk seal sighting hotline. He supports their volunteers and broadens their community outreach program on Hawaii Island. He also has 4 years experience in marine animal rescue and response, and spent time working with the Honu that's the Hawaiian green sea turtle, under the state's Division of Aquatic Resources Protected Species Program. Ryan is connected to the ocean. Ryan's connection to the ocean makes him an invaluable bridge builder between different interest groups on the island, at the beach, and his warm and easygoing personality makes him the perfect outreach contact. And he is, for Mina, an excellent friend. All right, so Ryan, take it away.
Thank you so much. I am honored to introduce the next presenter. Mina Jensen comes from a strong community of Lao Americans in Houston, Texas. This instilled a great drive to help others and the natural world around her. Mina graduated from the University of Health Science Center in San Antonio with a BS in nursing and worked as a medical surgical nurse during COVID-19 before transitioning to the field of conservation in 2022. She joined the Marine Mammal Center Keikaiola in our response and animal care programs. She got to go hands-on with the full range of our operation, from patient arrival, full-time care, transport for release, and to wild animal monitoring, capture, and rescue. To hear all about it, please welcome my friend, Mina Jensen.
Make sure it's good. Hello, y'all hear me?
Okay, give me a half second to move, Ryan.
Hello. Thank you, Ryan, for the wonderful introduction.
Sorry, I am not. There we go. Can you do it backwards?
Yeah. Oh, wait.
Sorry. Second. We'll get it. Okay, try backwards now.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Aloha kako. I'm Mina, and my master's project was understanding operation strategies for the conservation of the native Hawaiian monk seal, or Ilio at Keikaiola. I want to firstly thank everyone at the Marine Mammal Center and Keikaiola team for welcoming me with open arms and making me feel like family. I really could not have done this project without you all. So, like Ryan mentioned, I was raised in my Lao American community and worked as a nurse during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, I think seeing interconnectivity, dynamic layers of relationships was both instilled in my upbringing as well as highlighted in my professional life. And so for me, I sort of see all living things as threads in a tapestry, where we weave our own stories through our lived lives, but there's context and depth and connections that paint a larger picture that you just can't see by looking at on the one string. My journey that led me here was definitely not a linear one, but my drive to leave the world a little bit better than how I found it definitely remained the same. And I wouldn't have been able to do so without my amazing support system of friends and family, many of which are still in this audience. So my life experiences over the course of my upbringing, my education, and my work have really driven home to me the importance of nuance. This is something I see that is really important to bring into any professional scope, but especially so conservation. So many areas of science, conservation, ecology, and ethics are siloed and dominated by one correct view. This makes it difficult for anyone with different perspectives or approaches to navigate the same space without being judged, condescended, or even steamrolled into conforming. My time in the TCBES program really underscored the need for an open space for different perspectives and nuance, for discussion, and ultimately equally valued collaboration and partnerships. The ability to sit with uncomfortable truths and engage in difficult conversations is oftentimes the first step that is so essential in fostering collaboration and understanding between different groups, particularly those with different approaches, philosophies, and histories regarding the same subject matter. So, that's it. Let's keep this in the back of our minds as we jump into my focus for today. I did want to do a quick land acknowledgement prior to getting into the main content of the presentation. So I am a guest on this INA, visiting for the purpose of finishing my master's here at Hilo. I can currently trace my family's roots to Germany and Laos. I want to first start by acknowledging the island that we are gathered on, Hawaii, which is part of a larger territory recognized by Indigenous Hawaiians as their ancestral grandmother, Mammal. I recognize that Her Majesty, Hilo yielded the Hawaiian Kingdom and its territories under duress in protest of the United States to avoid further bloodshed of the people. I further recognize that Hawaii remains an illegally occupied kingdom. I recognize that each moment that I'm in Hawaii, she nourishes me and gives me with the opportunity to breathe her air, eat from her soils, drink from her waters, bathe in her sun, swim in her oceans, be kissed by her rains, and be embraced by her winds. I further recognize that generations of Indigenous Hawaiians and their knowledge systems shaped Hawaii in sustainable ways that allow me to enjoy these gifts today. For this, I am grateful. And as a guest, I seek to support the various strategies that the Indigenous peoples of Hawaii are using to protect their land and their communities, and I commit to dedicating time and resources to working in solidarity. So, we're going to talk a little bit about the background and life history of the Hawaiian Mosio, or Ili'o Holo Ikaʻola, before going into my internship experience, and then the critical work at my mentor organization, Kai'ola, where I'll be focusing on education, response, animal care, and then we'll be discussing future initiatives. So I wanted to first dive into a little bit of the history and context around Ili'o Holo Ikaʻola, so we can follow the threads and see the conservation story before we can understand our management. The Ili'o Holo, can you see it? Oh God. Well, the Ili'o Holo Ikaʻola is endemic to Hawaii and is found throughout the entire Hawaiian archipelago, where they forage in coastal reefs and deep water coral beds. They are silver gray pinnipeds that are about 6 to 7 feet long and on average can weigh up to 600 pounds. They are known to be generalist feeders, and with typical prey being sea cucumbers, crustaceans, squids, eels, and common fishes. They prefer to forage near the seafloor and the sand and under rocks. Contrary to rumor, the Ili'o Holo Ikaʻola does not target many of the locally popular game fish species like o'io, hapio, and aloha. They are non-territorial and mostly non-migratory, though individuals have been observed to travel hundreds of miles through open ocean, moving from island to island, where they tend to frequent the same beaches. They spend about 2/3 of their time in the ocean, but Ili'o Holo Ikaʻola do haul out onto land to rest, birds and nurse pups and moles. Females typically birth a single 25 to 35 pound pup and will nurse for about 5 to 7 weeks, during which time the female will not leave to forage until it is time to wean the pup. This makes the mother pup pair particularly vulnerable to stress and breath on land. They have a life expectancy of a little over 30 years. However, the combined anthropogenic and natural threats that they face make reaching this age a rare occurrence. So Ili'o Holo Ikaʻola are actually one of the most endangered seals in the world. Their population is currently estimated to be around 1,600 individuals, with around 1,200 being in the Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument, encircled in white, and around 400 here in the main Hawaiian Islands, seen in green. They were actually on the decline for about 6 decades until recently, with advances in research, conservation interventions, and improvements in animal medicine, but their population has actually been growing by about 2%. Like I mentioned before, this species only exists in Hawaii and has an estimated 1,600 individuals left. As one of the most endangered seals in the world, they face a wide range of threats: starvation, marine-to-marine entanglements and hookings, intentional killings, which I will get into a little bit later, and toxoplasmosis, to name a few. I want to take a quick moment to highlight toxoplasmosis, since it ties into other really relevant conservation discussions here in Hawaii. So toxoplasmosis is an infection that is caused by a parasitic protozoa called Toxoplasma gondii, which is carried by cats and dispersed through their feces. This is the reason that those who are pregnant are warned to avoid handling or taking cat litter, because infection can cause birth defects and miscarriage. In animals like the Hilo, infections are fatal. Here in Hawaii, there is a significant population of stray and feral cats, or cats with access to outside. Regardless of where the cats end up relieving themselves on the island, the rains end up washing the fecal material, and ultimately, the parasites, out into the ocean and into the local marine food web. Additionally, parasite oocysts are very durable and can survive months to over a year, lying dormant in the soil and seawater for prolonged periods of time. Unfortunately, the majority of threats they face are anthropogenic in nature. As you can see in these tables, human activity, including intentional killings, present the Hawaiʻi with a lot of challenges on top of the natural ones that they already face. In the Papahānaumokuākea Marine National Monument, their main threats are habitat loss and rising sea levels that shrink beach availability, loss of prey due to the many factors causing changes within our oceans, shark predation, marine debris entanglement, and also aggression. In the main islands, the primary concerns are negative fisheries interactions, diseases, and negative human interactions. The socio-political conservation of the Hawaiʻi is a complex one. Little is known about their history and distribution pre-Western contact, though their name in Hawaii, Hawaiʻi, meaning the dog that runs in the rough seas, appears in various places throughout their archival record, alongside other variations, including Hilo, Hilo, Hulu, Aukai, Hilo, Hilo, and alone. Primary resources from the 19th century indicate that sightings of the animal were rare, but they did occur. And there is linguistic evidence that suggests they may have been hunted as a food source and had their furs harvested and to be given as customary tribute to punish feet or land managers. These stand as evidence that the Hawaiʻi was known to the native Hawaiians at the time of Western contact. Archival and interview research has revealed references to them in the Kumalipo, various Mo'olelo, and multiple Hawaiian place names throughout the Hawaiian archipelago. In modern times, there has been a circulating belief that the Hawaiʻi is not native to Hawaii or is a threat to the way of life, inspiring negative perceptions and even intentional killings. These views are not rooted in a singular cultural or occupational identity, but rather reflect broader influences from the past and socio-political dynamics. Many of these misconceptions can be traced to either a disrupted relationship with the species and just bad press, both shaped by a legacy of Western imperialism and conservation approaches that historically block beach access, are not led by or partnered with community, and do not meaningfully include local and native plant perspectives. For some, the inability to interact with the Hawaiʻi in a customary way has reinforced the belief that the animal does not belong. A study evaluating native plant community perspectives around the animal mentioned that being prohibited from interacting with the species has exacerbated the belief that the animal is not native, and that modern cultural knowledge and familiarities with the seal cannot be cultivated because the seal cannot be touched or used for anything. Many species in Hawaii are traditionally associated with purpose, whether their sustenance, materials, or spiritual significance, and with the absence of relationship with the seal, origin is being questioned. The animal's resurgence has exposed it to many families who have not seen them for generations. And coupled with their absence in hula, jams, or the ipuhaku, the petroglyphs, this is what some have concluded that the seal is not from Hawaii. Some view the seal as competitors for important harvested fish, a concern that's amplified by economic pressures and shifts in marine resources. But, as I mentioned before, they don't competitively target harvested game fish species like humans. That said, these perspectives also exist alongside deep cultural connections to the Hawaiʻi. In that same study, some families on Oahu and Hawaii Island recognize the species as an Amakua, while others have conducted spiritual ceremonies acknowledging the seal as part of their ohana. It just goes to show how perspectives are truly mixed. The different sentiments around the Hawaiʻi reflect the complexity of conservation in Hawaii, where colonial impacts on oral history, generational gaps and encounters with the species, and concerns about resource access all intersect to shape public perception. To combat this association of the Hawaiʻi as this non-native coastal nuisance, beyond hard science, conservation strategies must include two things. One, use culturally appropriate interventions, and two, work in partnership and collaboration with local communities to re-anchor its native place to the islands and promote the best outcomes for all who call the seas and beaches of Hawaii home. So this brings me to my mentor organization, the Marine Mammal Center's Keikaiola, the only hospital in the world dedicated to the Hawaiʻi. Marine Mammal Center, which is based in Sausalito, California, is a critical first responder to threats to marine mammals, where they do rescue, veterinary medicine, research, science, and education. Their satellite hospital, Keikaʻola, meaning the healing sea, was established in 2014 and does critical work in animal care, rehabilitation, where they partner with various state and federal agencies to bring in sick and injured seals from all over Papahānaumoku and the main Islands. They also respond out of the field with surveys, rescues, and do plenty of public outreach. The education team has created educational programs and opportunities with the youth to promote awareness and coexistence on Hawaiian. These are my mentors at Keikaʻola, Megan and Dr. Sophie, with Megan being the director at Keikaʻola and Dr. Sophie being the associate director of Hawaiʻi Conservation Medicine. Both of them were so instrumental in my internship experience and just all around the most fun and lovely people to be around. Ryan too. So my internship at Keikaʻola aimed to understand the conservation strategies and management of the iliu holo by immersing myself in three main operational branches: education, response, and animal care. And then I created management assessment tools using the Voltage Excellence Framework. Aside from the tours and site visits, Keikaʻola has a middle school education program, Makapua Okikai, which provides marine science curriculum to young Hawaiʻi students that is place-based and connects the next generation science standards, the Mammal framework, ocean literacy principles, and Ololomaya. In this photo, you can see me at elementary school, teaching some kids about iliu holo ecology and the concept of one ocean, where they get to engage in activities that teach them all about how native ocean species and humans are interconnected. Focusing on teaching awareness to grade school students is imperative to foster a continued responsibility and passion for marine stewardship and ultimately conservation for a rare and endemic species like this one. Keikaʻola response leans heavily into public outreach and beach interactions that try to forge a sense of responsibility and connection to the iliu holo ecology, whether that they're a tourist or somebody who calls Hawaiʻi home. Oftentimes, they partner with local and government organizations for rescues, transportation, and other response activities. Much of the surveying, public interaction, and manpower comes from dedicated volunteers who carry out a significant portion of critical response work. They encourage the public to call the Hawaii Island hotline or Maui hotline when the beachgoers go and spot a seal at the beach or in the water, where the dispatcher would then send a response team with mostly volunteers to set up a seal resting area or SRA around the seal for everyone's safety, assess its condition, and identify the animal and the data use. Tracking individuals plays a really important role in conservation data keeping. We also spread important messages like encouraging people to use wireless folks, giving seal space, and how to spot a seal. Community involvement and relationships are key components of the Keikaʻola mission to encourage coexistence, so maintaining beach access, not blocking it off, working with local practitioners like Auntie Cindy Punihale, and driving home a core message that strives to put their best foot forward to make impressions and build bridges. These are just a few images that sort of capture a bit of the struggles or things you can encounter in the response side, where you have some people that kind of get too close to site warnings to keep a safe distance. Reports of injured seals, so this one in the middle, she's okay. Those are just old scars that we opened and spared some folks who pulled it in. Great. And mom and pup pairs that are vulnerable to all kinds of disturbances. And you can see in the photo, they get all kinds of mischief. Another example would be off-leash dogs on the beach, which can pose a threat to both the dog, the owner, and the seal involved. There have been instances where dogs have killed seal pups. So handling stressful situations in a way that is respectful and balances safety and coexistence requires careful, comprehensive knowledge and strong management systems in place. In animal care, volunteers also play important roles in patient observation, feeding, medication schedules, restraints, and enrichment. The site has rehabilitation and quarantine areas and medical facilities areas for seals of all ages. Their team of experienced technicians and veterinarians perform critical health interventions ranging from assessments, marine debris removal, surgeries, growing weight for malnourished patients, vaccinations, and also attaching satellite tags and identification tags. There's a strong emphasis on nourishing malnourished pups and emphasizing juvenile females to preserve reproductive potential. But patients can be any sex, any age, and any size. On the topic of animal care, I think it's really important to bring up toxoplasmosis again to underscore how important of an issue this is. To date, every Keikaʻola patient that has been infected with toxoplasmosis has seen a 100% mortality rate. No seal has contracted the illness to our current knowledge and survived. After my comprehensive immersion into these three operations at Keikaʻola, I referenced the Voltage Excellence Framework, as well as research on hospital strategic planning and management to create organizational organizational assessment tools for the Marine Mammal Center and Cape Hilo to use. The Baldrige Excellence Builder tools aim to help organizations identify and improve things that are critical to the mission success. To help organizations understand their processes and if they are consistently effective, if their approaches address organizational needs, and how good the results are, and if the organization is learning, innovating, and improving. So I made a few organizational assessment tools using this framework, one of which would be the score summary worksheet, which I structured off of criteria that would have been used by business, educational, and healthcare organizations for quality assessment and improvements. So I have questions that I adapted for the Marine Mammal Center and Cape Hilo that are either process or results related. And they are each worth a certain amount of points. The intention is to have the organization answer these questions by assigning a percentage to represent how they think they fulfill what they would define as successful in that criteria. For example, looking at 1.2, a leadership focused process question would sound like, how do you govern your organization to fulfill your responsibility to community? If the organization feels like they need about 90% will constitute success in that area, then they net 90% of the points in that question. The scoring bands range from 0 to 100 and represent how integrated the organization's approaches are, whether their structure only allows them to be reactive to issues, or if they have fully integrated best practices that preemptively prepare for problems, which is typically seen in industry leaders. This is a document I made as a key to help Cape Hilo answer some of the questions in the score summary worksheet. It's just to provide context for possible defining criteria for success they may be looking for in a particular focus. Because each organization is going to define what success looks like differently. To follow up from the previous examples, some things that managers could use to answer the question would be to think about how they feel they address their responsibilities to the public, what it means to practice good citizenship, to connect the community. These are qualitative questions that are designed to highlight how managers, how the organization meets their responsibilities, how they measure that, and what structures they have in place to ensure progress. Here are the organizational profile graphics that I made that were modeled after a hospital's profile under a human hospital's profile under the Baldrige framework. I split the graphics into 3 separate profiles because I was trying to capture the core values and building blocks that make up each operation that I work with: education, response, and animal care. The Baldrige framework emphasizes creating a system, building blocks so that plans, processes, and measures are consistent. So again, I attempted to capture the core values and concepts that represent each operation. Although normally under Baldrige, I would only have made one for the organization as a whole. Because I was looking at each operation on the micro scale, I chose to do it this way. Again, because education has a different filiana from, say, response or animal care, I wanted to separate them. Again, this is just to help me understand each of these operational pieces at a very fine scale. I compiled these building blocks by asking Cape Hilo staff and also direct observation from written and verbal messaging. And while there's, of course, overlap, I made a strong attempt to tailor each profile uniquely to each operational effort. I also created a balanced scorecard and strategy map, for which the most part complements each other for Cape Hilo. Strategy maps describe how organizations are structured to meet its goals and deliver its outputs through diagrams. It essentially outlines and describes the logic and direction of the organization, while the balanced scorecard describes how success in the organization will be followed, measured, and obtained. So what do future initiatives hold for the UV whole equal? The conservation management strategies for the species are always adapting to new information and changes in our oceans and communities. The current management plan not only prioritizes female juvenile survival and reproductive potential, but the partnerships and relationships with local communities and outreach to the public, distilling rumors and growing a connection to the animal, re-anchoring its place here. By tracing the threads on this animal's tapestry, you can see how its story has unfolded to shape its current conservation management plan. And to me, this one seems to be the most fulfilling. Here are my sources if anyone wants to learn more about what I spoke on today. And mahalo to my mentors, Dr. Sophie and Megan, Carmelita, Brian, Wendy, Jackie, Heather, Heidi, Stephanie, all the wonderful volunteers at Cape Hilo, Lisa Canale, my cohort, and really cute field that I got to work with. What's the question?
Can you elaborate on, you mentioned, I mean, first, Amazing presentation, Mina.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on, you mentioned tracking the use carbon down?
Yeah.
Is that something satellite?
Yeah. I don't have any photos of the tags themselves. But essentially, oh, I think this is good. Yeah, so satellite tags are, they're attached via like it's adhesive that the veterinary team will attach to the seal. Usually after, like to come in for a surgery or like an inpatient, they'll attach the tag. And then we can kind of just track it like will paint, and then you can track where you are, whether it's way out on top of Honolulu or close by. They do have a catastrophic molt every year, and so they will shed all their fur and then off comes the satellite tag. But they also have identification tags as well. So if you ever see a seal and you see like something red and plastic on the back of their hind flippers, that's what that is, or a string of numbers and letters that let us know who they are. So that was the biggest scar. That was RAHE. Thank you for your question. You have questions? Dr. Reuters.
Thank you for the presentation. I guess, can you speak at all to how the organization is using this sort of assessment tool?
Yeah, so I interviewed a lot of the staff to kind of see what their needs were and what they kind of felt structure-wise, my output to be to help. So I gave them the tools, and my job isn't to assess their processes, it's really a self-assessment. And so I have given them the tools. But I haven't seen, I don't know, because I just gave it to them, but, I'm not certain, yet, like, hopefully it's very helpful.
So this seemed very valuable, and so all this work that you did for this particular organization, do you see how easy it would be to, translate this into generating another assessment tool for another kind of organization?
Absolutely, yeah, the Voltage framework has all sorts of plans that are specific to whatever kind of organization it is. I mentioned businesses, hospitals, but there's other kinds of organizations as well. They have their own little packet for nonprofits, all sorts of like different structures that works best. And what's great about this is that the organization themselves sits down and builds it to what works for them. So it's a really, really great tool, I think, for assessing your process and measuring how you meet what your goals are.
So that was actually my question too, but another follow-up to that is, did they ask you for to build something like this for them, or was that something that you saw that they could use?
I just walked in, so I have a background in human medicine, and so I know how important structure and management is, or lack thereof. And so I'm not saying Capital doesn't have structure, but I wanted to come in, I wanted to share what I know, and wanted to kind of have an exchange, and kind of build something that'd be helpful to them. Yeah. It was my idea. That was a long way of saying that.
I guess my question is, has your experience that you've had informed your next steps? Like, do you see yourself in the same realm of like species-centered conservation work, or maybe even like management framework type of thing?
Yeah, thank you for your questions. Yes, all the above. I really developed like a really strong love for seals in general. Not that I didn't think they were super awesome before, but really working this close to them gave me a really deep like appreciation for the animal and marine mammals in general. If I could work in that scope, that'd be awesome. But I know that the work like regarding management and conservation management of species is so important, and I think the insights that I'm gaining will help me regardless of where I go on conservation. So I'm just kind of excited to see whatever those next steps are. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Can you go more into that kind of fascinating thing about how the seal viewed is not from Hawaii? Was that because of like killing the seal when colonization happened, or?
So it is a really complex mystery, and unfortunately there's not very much documented. I do know that the whaling industry did impact the seal. I know that there was like barrels of seal oil and pellets that were collected during that time it was here in Hawaii. I do know that there was really those numbers plummeted. Those animals were not doing well at all for a very long time. So there was already not many to begin with. But with conservation efforts, there has been a rise, and so this really layered issue, where you have a erasure of historical knowledge of the animal, and you have like an oral history culture when you have that language removed by imperial powers. It makes the relationship really complex. So different places in Hawaii have different relationships with the seal, for sure. Yeah. I have resources that I can send to you. It's really, I can be here for a long time to kind of talk about it, but it is something that I wanted to highlight. It's not one particular, it's just not so easy to just blame one particular group. It's a very, very layered issue that requires a really careful understanding of the history of conservation history here in this island, the legacy of colonization, and the seal's history in ecology as well. Okay. You have a question? Hold your question.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. I was thinking, from a comms perspective, you have those three charts that have those three aspects that you were working on, and it kind of pulled out the key themes. Was that something that you created for brand identity? Was that something that was already existent that you wanted to modify? Or?
So I'm sure that they have their own graphics within their own internal structure. I wanted to make one for them. So it was both to help me and to help them. It's whatever I could do based off of this framework. So I don't know what we're gonna like comms graphics. I don't know what they have on their end for that. But I know that following the Baldrige framework, I wanted to make something that followed that framework and that structure. Again, ideally, it should be one graphic for the whole organization. Because you don't want different messaging from different compartments within one organization, because then you don't have the same message. But for this specific purpose, I wanted to understand the key important pieces, and I wanted a broader understanding of the management on the macro scale, but I need to examine the micro scale, and so this was helpful for me to do that.
Wonderful, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you for your presentation. I don't know if this is too much like an outreach of a question, but I know you said you're educating elementary students. I was wondering if you like educated like any locals or any like tourists coming. So I saw that you said you put like gates around like the monk seal, like ropes and stuff like that. Is that like too much to ask for if like say like one of us showed up to a beach and do that, or does it make more sense? Because I guess I wouldn't know the number to call you guys, so I don't know if there's like something that you put up or maybe something that we could put around.
Yeah.
I don't know, again, it could be too much to ask for, but just.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So they do have a number. I honestly should have put that on the slides, but thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, so they have a hotline. You can Google it. It's just the Marine Mammal Center or Keikaiola, and then their number is right there. So when you see a seal, it's not upon you to go and set up an SRA around them. You call them, they send out a response team, and then they kind of help. If you wanted to help and like join the response team and you want to put the signs up and all that, you can sign up to volunteer, because that's their main boots on the ground are volunteers. So yeah, the main thing that we ask the public is just to kind of keep your distance. Call in if you see a seal, let us know like where the seal is, if you see any signs of distress, anything that's kind of interesting, but definitely don't get too close. They are apex predators. They look really cute and cuddly, but we want to bite from one of them. But yeah, so no need to worry with ropes and things like that. All Marine Mammal Center. Anybody else?
We lost our chat follower, our online person, so let's see who we might have. Hello, Zoomers. We're checking to see if you have any questions. And lots of congratulations. No question yet. Okay. All right. Well, then, if there's no additional questions, we'll take a break. But before we do that, let's give a big hand to Mina. And so our next talk will start in 6 minutes.